First up, Chris.
Hey, Bobby, just that second half run that they went on, what did you think were some of the main things that happened there?
I mean, I ended up just watching it, so I revisited a lot of those possessions, and I think it was a combination of just poor shot selection, careless turnovers, bad transition defense after mistakes, and we were still like up to 43-41 somehow with 15 minutes left, with all the things that I witnessed through 25 minutes. So it felt like a miracle. But then we found a way to do worse than we had done up to that point, which was scary. And again, just poor shot selection, quick shots, unexcusable turnovers, and then bad defense. So I give credit to San Diego State, because it felt like a really ugly game, difficult game for anyone to really get in an offensive rhythm, and they emerged, from that 15-minute mark in the second half and really, just outplayed us. Were more physical, more resilient, and Shackle was best player on the floor today.
Oh,
Bobby, I know it was deep into the first half until Remy took his first shot. How did you feel about his game overall tonight?
Oh, he was a little, just kind of had a little bit of a blank look on him. Wasn't really, having that fire, that energy that I always am kind of been used to seeing from Remy. And overall, he's got to play better in these games like this, that he's had a history of playing extremely well in these type of games. It was 43-41, and he tried to get a foul on a 3-point shot and didn't work out. They hit a 3. So it's things like that we really have to try and avoid. Just loud mistakes, bad judgment.
Doug.
Bobby, just the rebounding, you knew that was going to be maybe a challenge going into this year, but where do you have to do better just to kind of even that out a little bit?
Well, we didn't. Our offense started out poor, both halves. We just didn't. The ball was sticking too much. They were switching their 5 on our guards, and we couldn't really go by them again, and which is pretty surprising. Our forwards didn't make them pay under the basket for switching. So, we're going to have to work on that as we go, because I would imagine Villanova did a similar thing, and other teams might see that and say, hey, this is working pretty well. So we'll be getting to the practice floor and seeing adjustments that we can make on offense to do better in those situations.
Michael.
Coach, what do you think of Jalen Graham? Performance-wise, looks like in the second half he was seemingly calling for the ball more down low. Like you said, coming in, you knew the defense would be tough, but was it kind of more a concerted effort to try and get the ball hit to him down low down the stretch?
I liked how he finished the game. His first half, he had similar opportunities. He was 1 for 4, didn't convert. I think where it got its worst for us, if you go back and look at this, and I'm not sure that you guys probably are not going to want to watch this again, but it was 44-43, I believe. They were up, and Jalen missed a legitimate jump hook over 6'1" defender that he certainly can make, and it was one of the poorest examples of our lack of focus to run back on defense, our lack of care to run back on defense, and they laid the ball in the other way, and that's when they started breaking the game open a little bit, and eventually got it to 48-43 and hit a couple of threes after that. So, but that's a play that really sticks out in my mind of, or do we really care about like how hard we got to play? Do we know how hard we got to play to beat a team like this? And there were too many examples of that tonight.
Gordon.
Yeah, Coach, you briefly mentioned some of the shots tonight that just weren't falling. Obviously, there's other things to work on, but what are you telling your team about overcoming that to find ways to hopefully get those shots to start falling soon?
Well, I mean, we have to, our threes were disproportionate based on our shot attempts, but, their defense was very focused on taking away driving lanes and packing the paint. So we had to prove that we could make them. We picked that up as the half wore on, the first half. And, but we started the second half similar to how we started the game, just very, just not sharp, very loose with the ball, poor shot selection. And we kind of dug ourselves the same hole that we dug early in the game.
Amir.
Yeah, Coach, you talked about them packing the paint. You guys only had 8 points in the paint tonight. On nights like these, do you want your team shooting that many three-pointers, or do you want them still trying to drive and get in the paint?
Yeah, I would have liked to see Jalen finish a few more in the first half. I think that would have given us more confidence to try and get him the ball more, as he had a switch off advantage. But I mean, I think that some of the shots we would consider good shots. Our first possession and a half, Zoe back cut, Josh hit him. We threw it to Cherry in the left corner and he was wide open and we didn't connect. And Zoe took an early one that was in transition. It wasn't a great one. Remy had a drive and kick for Zoe when he hit one. We're going to have to. Teams don't want to get beat off the dribble by us. They know we could dribble well and get in the lane. So it was definitely a part of their plan to force us to make shots from the perimeter.
Doug.
Bobby, what you said about Remy a little bit earlier, just kind of lacking his usual fire. We haven't heard that much. Do you think he's just getting caught up a little bit in being the facilitator and being a scorer, or what would you attribute that to?
It's a new group, and certainly not making any excuses. We've had plenty of time to practice and work together. We've had no stoppages. So we should be functioning better. But I mean, I needed him to be a little more aggressive. I thought he might have, passed up a couple of shots. Needed him to create a little more. He's got to be a little more aggressive, I think.
A few more questions. Nicholas.
I wanted to get your thoughts on Alonzo Verge's performance after coming back from a couple of games being out. What did you think of Verge's night tonight?
Well, I mean, I think he struggled early to make shots and got it going as the half wore on. He was probably our most potent offensive player tonight. And that being said, it wasn't perfect for him. He had a behind the back pass turnover that I didn't love, kind of falling down. He had another one he threw out of bounds to Graham, trying to cut to the basket. They had like 5 on the clock, and he didn't get into Gomez's space and hit a 3, which was a big, kind of where we were at like 10 or 12 at that point, and that was like a daggerish type of 3. So certainly, he had a good statistical offensive night, but I don't think anybody should be happy about what happened tonight.
Christopher F.
Coach, you've now been out rebounded, or your team has now been out rebounded in 4 out of your 5 games, and tonight you gave up 17 second chance points. How do you get your team to crash harder on the boards, and how noticeable was your team leading rebounder in Marcus Bagley, his absence tonight? Yeah,
Marcus is a really good player, and certainly, it matters to not have someone like him. He's really good, and you always and his shooting ability against a team like this, I think, would have helped. But we didn't have Verge, and he was one of our better scorers. We got to figure it out. I think we can have poor offense bleed into terrible transition defense or lack of rebounding, and that might have been the case. First half, there was a poor one where they shot an air ball, and we watched the ball bounce and assuming it was going out of bounds, and it didn't. And then they hit a 3 in the right corner. So, we certainly, there are ones that we can control. Sometimes a 7-footer might go over us and get one, and you could live with it. But when you're getting out hustled on the baseline just by someone that is more alert and more ready to go after the ball, and you're standing around assuming something, and they hit a 3, that's a problem. So we talked about that at halftime. So these are all things that if we can't find another gear and play harder, then we're not going to have success versus teams like San Diego State or Villanova or any really good teams that are on our schedule the rest of the way.
Last question, Chris.
Bobby, just following up on that, how important are guys like Lawrence and Cherry to just as veterans to that aspect, especially when you don't have Marcus?
Yeah, they were. It's just, unfortunately, they accumulated a lot of fouls. So, they had 3 fouls each in the first half. We really don't play Chris and Jalen together too often. We were doing that. I had Josh at the 4. Sometimes we don't really practice that a ton. So those guys, getting the fouls hurt us there. And, it wasn't a good night for any of us. So I don't really want to go into a lot of detail about, how good Kamani and Tay were, because there weren't a lot of positives. There weren't a lot of guys that played well, or we didn't coach well either. I didn't get the team ready. We didn't practice great this week, and so that's on me. I gotta get these guys ready to play and figure out a way to be more effective in games like this.
Thanks for the time, Coach.
Hey, thanks, Bobby.
Thanks, Coach.